Don't you think it's about time for a podcast that's more fulfilling? One that's about the vibrant exchange of ideas and perspectives that happens when we actually come together. We got you covered. Welcome to the Deep Blue Project, where the depths of conversation meet the waves of personal experience. This is a real, raw, and unscripted show about everything from leadership lessons to self-awareness, wellness, and the latest current events. We cover it all. We have a rotating cast of guests as we share our personal stories, insights, and opinions on the issues that matter most. Plus, we have a blast while doing it. The Deep Blue Project. It's not just a podcast, it's an experience. And now your host, Chris Workman.
All right, everyone, welcome to the Deep Blue Project. I need to welcome my good friend and somebody I have really wanted to get on this show since I started in June because it means a lot to me. And we have Chris Scallon with us today. Chris, welcome to the Deep Blue Project, brother.
How you doing, brother? Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to this.
Man. Doing awesome. I'm doing better now that we're having this. Hey, what we're going to do today is, you know the way this works. So Chris and I are going to get him stuff. We kind of talk about anything and everything. But I first want Chris to give you, for those who don't know Chris, who haven't had the chance to see Chris, we're going to talk about some things. We're going to talk about how we kind of first met and got together. And we're going to go on from there to what we're doing now, because I just found out something not too long ago that I'm getting kind of tied up into something that Chris has been tied into for a long time, which I'm so excited and happy about. So, Chris, Give everybody a little bit about yourself, brother.
Retired sergeant from Norfolk Police Department in Virginia. In this kind of realm, in this sphere of what I'm doing now and what I've been doing for the last 10, 15 years. Multiple shootings during my tenures as a police officer and a supervisor over there. Wheels kind of fell off, struggled with substance, with mental health. Wound up getting help on several different occasions. And I kind of saw a gap in service in our agency. So I think big thoughts, sometimes follow through isn't always there. But on this one, I was like, I'd love to leave my agency a little bit better than I found it. And I'm like, we don't have any peer program. We have nothing. We have a lot of people that are like, that'll help. Like if you reached out, there's people out there that would do that, but we had nothing formal. And I wanted to start getting it more formalized and, getting some resources out there because we were seeing a lot of people struggling. And to be quite honest, initially I did it for me. Right. I tried to create something that I wish I had when I needed services or help. Right. So I wound up doing that. I was fortunate enough to get an audience with our command staff, and it's very odd to try to start or implement a new program in an agency that is understaffed and with no budget. So I was met with a lot of obstacles, but during that time, I started working with a lot of folks over at IACP and ICISF and just kind of getting into the mix with it and working on various national projects and other governmental organizations, or at least initiatives, whether it be the Anti-Terrorism Emergency Assistance Program or CTAC through IACP, like the training and consulting kind of stuff. And it just kind of picked up from there. And as a result, I wound up linking up with Rich Creamer, Rich was the guy that when I was retiring, I wanted somebody who was better than me to kind of take over and kind of keep it going. You don't ever want to create something and then have it go to crap, right? So, right. Rich was the go-to guy. And to his credit, I started with something that I thought was unbelievably amazing. I think within a span of a year and a half, it looked nothing like what I started it with, and it was a million times better. So a lot of credit goes to him and his drive. And then linking up with Doug Mond, Raul Rivas, Chris Fields to start off the Trauma Behind the Badge, right, which has been phenomenal, which kind of augments or helps support or promote, Survive First and some of the other nonprofits. But yeah, my career I've done everything with the exception of work traffic. So homicide, narcotics was, I think the first 13 years of my career were narcotics, which was awesome. Canine, which hands down was one of the best places I ever worked. And then I wound up going to probably the most elite unit on any department, records. So I wanted, I wanted to get records, which was good. It allowed me the opportunity to kind of work on creating this peer program. But yeah, my dog got injured, and we wanted to do like a quality of life rather than just work him to death, like
Right.
a lot of agencies do. But so yeah, it gave me. I did a favor for an assistant chief. He's like, "Hey, can you take the supervisor position over there?" And I wound up going over to records for a little bit. And then again, once the peer program started taking off, I got moved.
Right.
They move you to wherever they think. I needed to fall under the chief or the deputy chief, but they put you under training. So I answered to a chief, but also a captain, but also different commands. So it becomes more of a like a dance on who I'm not going to piss off as much. I like, you get a chief that's like, hey, this is between me and you and
Yeah, I
whoever
get
you're
it.
dealing with. And then the captain's like, why'd you meet with the chief? And I'm like, listen, man, you guys figure it out. I'm just a low guy on the totem pole on this thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I've done this podcast for a little while now, and people who have read my book and people who have had the questions, I've mentioned Chris on numerous occasions. I'm not sure if Chris is aware of this, but he's going to be aware of it now. So I met Chris in 2021 in Fort Lauderdale, and I love telling this story because people crack up. But if you know Chris Scallon, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So he's sitting at a table. I hope you mind me telling this story. So I think this is
Oh,
great.
okay.
So he's sitting at a table, and this is the first time I ever have interaction with Chris. And he's sitting at a table with somebody from LEDA, and this is my first thing, and I'm running for an office, and it's the very first time, and I'm walking up to ask the question to somebody who's sitting there with Chris, and just as like there's no tomorrow, I'm standing there, and he turns around, looks at me, and goes, what the fuck do you want? And I look at him and I just laugh. I'm like, I'm waiting for you to shut the fuck up so I can ask the question. And that was it. Like, that was like the moment there that everything was like, like we hit it off. We were good from that
That's good
point.
stuff, man. I remember that. I remember that.
So the rest of the night went great. But then the next day, so it tells a lot of the story of how it goes back to how this came about, how Deep Blue came about, how my book came about, how the things happened with me. And the next morning is when Chris spoke at the FBI LEDA conference. And if you've ever heard Chris speak and you haven't had a chance to, please have the chance when he's not having any handcuffs on him, because it is the most pure and raw thing you'll ever hear in your life. And I have to say, Chris, that day, I never thought what that day would mean to me until 3 years later. I never thought what that day would come. And I followed Chris for a while and Trauma Behind the Badge and these guys I've dealt with a lot. But that conversation that Chris had, and I call it a conversation with the group that day, resonated with me the day that I really was having probably the worst day I'm ever going to have. And it was the day that I really was close enough that if the right things were in place, that I probably would have taken my own life. But I remembered those things, and I don't know. I never told you that, Chris. I don't think I've ever told you that yet, because a lot of times we've been with a lot of people.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
that saved me that day, and I want to thank you for that.
No, that's. But it's interesting. So I talk about when I speak. There's a couple things, and I like what you said, not being handcuffed, because certain organizations, they're like, let's be a little bit more proper. I got to tell you something. In the midst of crisis, when I was at my darkest, I didn't care about language. I didn't care about offending anybody. I just wanted to kind of like vent and be like, this fucking sucks. This is miserable. I don't feel good. But there's no venue to do that. So again, I was given the luxury of, I speak to a lot of places. I'm retired. When I was representing an agency or an organization, it's a lot different. You have to kind of, I hate to say play the game, but you got to, I guess, tone it down a little bit.
Right.
But I want to talk when I do the presentation. It's 90% of the people. It's not for them. It's not applying to them. They can get something out of it. That's good. But there's a small group of people in that audience, and first responders and veterans, that are in the same. I'm talking to me.
Yeah.
5, 6, 10 years earlier, right? And I want them to know that, just like all of us, we do with the Trauma Behind the Badge guys and everything, and Survive First, and we don't want you to think you're doing this by yourself or that you're the only person going through this. So I talk about what it looked like for my suicide, following a significant shooting event that I had, right, or killing somebody or something, and I want to share that in the raw, because that I think people who are going through stuff, kind of really recognize that and it resonates with them. And we had a conversation on one of our podcasts about, we talk about these things and a lot of people are like, all right, I'm going to listen, whatever. And they start going, you see heads nodding or you're like, oh, they kind of get it. And you're like, I'm not the only one. But more importantly, Chris is still standing here. I'm here for a reason. My reason, there's not enough people to thank for the reason why I'm still here, whether it be my wife, whether, be my friends, my coworkers, my family. It's clinicians, doctors, hospital, all that stuff. They all played like a role. And it's hard and it's difficult to see through all that. So the one thing that we like to try to provide is a modicum of hope. Like, hey, this is a result. This could be like a good thing. And I think that's what kind of keeps us going. And the other conversation that we had was very rarely do we get the benefit of seeing what we talk about having a good effect. And it's happened a handful of times. And one in specific was a lot of stuff we do offline. Like I'll get a phone call at like 3 or 4 in the morning. And I talked to this one kid for hours. And I do that all the time with a bunch of different people. So all the guys from Trauma Behind the Bag, we all get these phone calls. And I wound up teaching a class somewhere, and this one kid kind of stays after, and I'm like, probably going to complain, or I said something off color. And I just so used to it now. But he handed me something, and I was in the middle of doing something else. I said, thought it was a business card or a coin, which I love, and whatever. And then I looked down at it once I got kind of situated, and it was a bullet. And I'm like, okay. And before that person left, I'm like, hey, man, you got a second? He's like, yeah. You want to explain this? He goes, you probably don't remember. You talked to me for a couple hours. I said, yeah. He goes, this was a bullet I was going to kill myself with. And I'm like, what? Because we don't hear that. Then fast forward, we were together in Boston.
Yeah.
And I think you may have been privy to what was going on over there, but I did a presentation with one of the folks over at National FOP Wellness, and this girl comes up, like visibly emotional, right? And I'm like, you okay? You helped me through a very dark time. And I'm like, oh, that's fine, blah, blah. She goes, you and the guys from Trauma Behind the Badge. And I remember saying, I was like, well, have you said anything to them? No. She's like, they're here? I was like, yes, we're all here. So we wound up linking up. But what we're doing is, ultimately, what it feels like, we're planting the seeds for a tree that will never have the luxury of the shade. Right? So we're not ever going to see all the people that we help. But we know they're out there. So when I hear stories like that, when you say what you say, that does not, fall on deaf ears. That's why we do this. There's no money. There's no medals. There's no nothing, because that's not what we want. We want to know that we're doing something for these group of people that are risking their lives on a daily basis, that are struggling, and that they get the help that they need, or that they know that they're not alone and manage to get through it and actually come out better on the other side.
That's exactly the point. And we talk about this sometimes, and we talked about it in Boston. We're just trying to do this where we make that one impact on somebody that stops them or makes them think a second, that gives them that moment of clarity that just pauses whatever they were going to do. And that's what it was like for me at that time. But in that space, it didn't happen right away. And that's what I'm trying to tell them. Like, you spoke in 2021, but but we don't always see the shit that we're doing. Like we think that we can just continue because, it was for that moment I felt like shit, but now I'm good. So I just go back to what I was doing before.
Yeah.
But there's going to be a point, and there was that point where you're just going to hit the wall. And that was kind of that moment in having heard people that resonate. I might resonate with somebody in this space and having this conversation, and we do this all the time. But Chris is going to resonate with some people. Doug's going to resonate with some people. Raul's going to we know everybody's not going to resonate with the same people, but that's why we do it, and that's why we're here, because I heard tons of people talk in between 2021 to the date that I was walking in my driveway and deciding, and it just happened to be Chris Scallon's voice and what he talked about that rang in my head. That, and then other things kind of get me through now each and every day. Because to your point, there's no magic pill. Like this doesn't, you don't like turn around and go, oh, I'm good now. Hey, I'm
Yeah.
great. No, this is every day.
Yeah.
It's every day that I have to work on that. And that these things that we're doing, I think much like you, when you started, therapy didn't work for me. There's a lot of things that didn't work for me,
Mhm.
but Deep Blue has worked for me. Having these conversations has worked for me. Like this is my therapy. I love it. I love it.
Oh,
So
yeah. You know, there's a handful of people that really helped me, but there was one person in particular, and there was a couple of these type of people that they weren't on a stage. They were a cop, or they were a medic, or they're working in the same field, or they were a veteran, and they spoke to me not from a platform, but alongside me, like, hey, brother, man, you're not looking good, or what's going on. It was a very honest, altruistic conversation. There was nothing behind it. They weren't looking for anything other than just they recognized something. And I'll give you an example of what that looks like. I was speaking in, I think it was in Vegas. It was a labor assistant professional conference. It was a really good conference, and did one of my presentations involving a trauma following a shooting, right? And I play the shooting. And now when I play the shooting or show the video and the slides or whatever, I step off the stage or go off to the side because I don't want to be distracting from, what I want them to see. And while I'm doing that, I hear these footsteps like kind of hauling alongside, and I turn and I look, and it's Doug Monda, which is this is how we met. And I'm like, hey man, you okay? He's like, are you okay? I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, well, that's a lot of shit to go through. And he's like, I know you probably talk about this a lot, but you just want, that's all he gave you shit. The fucking presentation meant shit to him other than just, hey, here's another guy going through some shit. But he was like genuinely concerned, like, hey man, are you okay? Which, believe it or not, doesn't happen a lot, right?
right.
So it was one of those things. I'm like, yeah, man, I'm fine. And I explained to him, I was like, yeah, I just get off the stage. I process all of this as best I can, and I continue to process it. But thank you. I appreciate that. And from that point on, it just kind of meshed. Like same thing when we met. There's certain people that you just kind of click with. And I think it's those people that you have that kind of shared history or that shared trauma that you're like, okay, this guy gets it. We don't have to have a conversation.
Right.
I know. It's one of those things you don't ever have to explain to me, and Doug will never have to explain to me, and I'll never have to explain to Doug or Raul or Chris or Rich because they've been there. They know what it's like, and it's nice. It's comforting to have that kind of experience. But again, to what you were saying is not everybody's at the same place at the same time. I used to teach a class in our academy about the logistics of being involved in a shooting and stuff like that. And I get into like, hey, this is what you think, and this is what the reality is, and all that good stuff. Well, 5 years later, one of the kids that was in the class gets involved in a significant shooting and catches up. And he goes, all that shit that you talked about. He goes, I knew it was legit. I knew it was dangerous and real, but now I really know because he had gone through it. He goes, I was surprised that what you were talking about, I remembered while I was going through the shooting because you kind of explained it that way. And I'm like, that's what it's there for. It's that being preemptive with kind of helping you through what you're getting ready to face in your career or in your life, personal or professional life. So yeah, it's this. And we say it all the time with Trauma Behind the Badge. Us helping people is so beneficial to us. It feels almost selfish that we get a benefit from helping other people or just listening to people, that it sometimes feels a little bit selfish. But it's cathartic on both sides of it. And it's just super rewarding. And I know, like, with this podcast and with Trauma Behind the Badge, we make billions of dollars a year with our podcast. So obviously we're doing it for the money and all the riches and the wealth and stuff like that. But, and just to take it just a little step further, becoming one of those guys that kind of goes out there and kind of promotes being healthy and all that good stuff does not mean we're devoid from trauma or crisis going through this. There's been times, again, loss of a family member or significant illnesses in family or loss of I'm of the age now where I just got an email that another guy I used to work with passed away, so it's one of these things that it's not a fix. You don't go to a conference or you don't talk to somebody, you don't get treatment or you do, and you're like, I'm all done. No, it's like, you got to work at it. You got to continue to do it. And you're going to take 15 steps forward, 100 steps back. and then a million steps forward and one step back. It's just how it is. But it's just got to keep on keeping on and just kind of try to be as positive and maintain that proactive kind of search for help.
Right.
And being,
Yeah. No, that's perfect. I mean, that's what we do. I mean, that's plainly what we do. And sometimes people don't realize. You get asked all the time, like, "Well, why do you do that?" I get people call me who ask that question and be like, "Well, what is the I said I do it one for myself, quite honestly. I mean, if I'm
no,
being honest, it's for me.
nothing
And
wrong.
then, but I'm having that opportunity that all these people that you get to speak to and all this interaction and people that become, and I think this is one thing that I started talking about and really getting into is when you looked into things and when I really started diving into stuff is finding your tribe. Like our tribe was so shitty in the beginning and we never realized it. And now when you have that epiphany, I guess you could say, or that just that wherewithal to go, hey, start surrounding your people with the people that are good for you, the people that can make you better than you are today. Because we all know that, like, you hang around shit, you're going to be shit. That's just the way it is. I
Yeah,
mean, and we were all that because we were never taught the right way to deal with this crap. It was, hey, I had a shitty day, so now I'm just going to go drink a fifth. Like, I just had a shitty time, so I'm gonna drink that pain away, and then I'm gonna be, more of a pain in the ass. And then when it happens again tomorrow, I'm gonna do the same thing.
yeah. No,
So,
it's all those things are, and it's interesting because I get so much more from the people that I kind of work with and help. And again, surrounding yourselves. So I go things about things a little bit differently than a lot of folks. Like I'll dive into something 1,000 miles an hour. So like when I started trying to figure out peer stuff, I was really doing it for myself. I was trying to figure out, what do I need to do? How do I need to do this? What does it involve? I need to understand why it is I'm feeling that way. I get that it's real. So I started going and just immersing myself in the academics of it. Now, I agree with you. Surround yourself with positive people and with people of the same ilk that are going to benefit you because of their personalities, because of their traits. There's an actual term for that. It's called vicarious resilience. That means living vicariously. So it's instilling hope. And when I'm starting to do the research, because I know about all the bad stuff, or a good portion of it, like post-traumatic stress and all that, anxiety, depression, all that. But there's things as positive psychology or post-traumatic growth. All these little different things. So I kind of dive into that to find out why it is that I'm feeling the way I am. And in understanding it, I could probably attack it a little bit better. It's kind of like, can I go inside a building that I've never seen and navigate my way through it to either for assault purposes, for active shooter? I could probably do it. Would I be better prepared if I kind of had a better layout of the building? It's the same thing. I know where to go. I know the path to take that would probably get me there more directly, as opposed to flooding the place. And I'm sure I'll get there. I'm sure I'll do what I need to do. But if I could cut some time off of it, because man, when you are in a bad spot, time drags, it slows, and it feels like for a week feels like 10 years. So just any kind of little help kind of works. So
right.
I dig into it academically. I dig into it to the point where I surround myself with people that are wicked smart. A good friend of mine who's a neuropsychologist at a big university in Middle America. There's a really good friend of mine who and they've both been on our show, Tim and Dr. Amanda Farrell. Dr. Amanda Farrell, I worked with her father in narcotics, and now she's a professor over in the UK. And again, bringing up all this stuff. So I'm always trying to learn. And a buddy of mine who's retired sergeant from NYPD who does a lot of training and tactical training. He goes, Chris, you have, and I've stolen this from him. Like, thank God I don't have to pay like royalties, but he goes, be a student of your craft.
Right.
The day you know everything is the day you don't know shit. And so constantly be learning. What's the new thing? I'll never be like, that's not going to work. This is the way I've been doing it. It works better for me. If somebody's made a better wheel or a better widget or what, I want to know what that is. And maybe I can incorporate it. Maybe I've been doing it okay, but I could do it better. So just again, being a student of your craft, constantly like looking at what's the latest things that are coming out, evidence-based, and then then it becomes, I want to help the people. And now I've kind of made I don't want to say shift, but I've kind of branched out and working with some other organizations to help train future clinicians on how to treat us.
Right.
The scope of this is as broad as you want it to be, or as narrow as you want it to be. So that my goal is, again, just constantly like existing to be better, me personally, of elevate the people around me, and learn as much as I can from the guys and girls that I work with and that I encounter. Because I've learned, and I'm sure you have as well, I've learned a ton from people that I would have in a million years never learned, never figured that I would have learned anything from.
Right.
Okay, I don't care how smart you are. I don't care how old, how young. You could always there's people out there that you're like, oh, that's pretty awesome,
Right.
And again, it has nothing to do with status, class, or whatever. Just be in a state of be a sponge.
Right. When you first open yourself up to that, I found that when I was able to first open myself up to that and actually listen instead of just hear, like listen to what people were saying. The old adage is, reading is leading, and
Yeah.
if you stop learning, you die. Like all of that stuff was stuff that I didn't do. And now I read more now than I ever did in my life. Like I never was a reader. And these books and things people come out with, and the people that I have just met in the last year, and the things that have changed so drastically in this space for the last year has helped me be such a different, and I'm still learning, trust me. Like
Oh, yeah.
people, you guys teach me stuff all the time. I listen to Doug and Raul and yourself and other people, and Liz. God, Liz has become, we both know Liz Pohl. I've had on this
Shakira,
podcast.
my
Yes. She is one of the most amazing people I have met in my life.
Yeah,
And,
awesome.
and her and I talk constantly, but she's doing things and something that I never even heard about. And it was a neat thing to learn. And I think that goes to your point of listening to others and seeing these things that are out there and the stuff that people are dealing with. Like, you're not by yourself, and there are people there that are wanting to make your voice even larger because, again, there's enough people out there, and you may be the voice that somebody wants to hear. So why not promote that? Why not try to bring people into that space that are willing to be those people and continue to learn themselves, because they're just starting. Like, I'm a baby at this. I consider myself a small part of this, but I'm learning every day.
Yeah, I don't. Some of the best speakers, with there's a couple exceptions to this rule, but the best ones that I know and that I've encountered, that I have the luxury of like meeting with and kind of talking to, are perpetual students. They understand and can appreciate that they can gain an understanding from the most obscure places in the world. I was, God, there was a global exchange conference, and we were doing. And by the way, I'm working with Liz on with the global exchange as well.
Right.
We're working with Liz and I are one the ones, and myself and Doug and Karen are working with a foundation to help future clinicians kind of like work with us. And we were getting ready to do this presentation. It got canceled at the last second because of the Milton, the hurricane, whatever. But
Yeah.
they're talking about it, and they're like, "Hey, Michael J. Fox is going to be one of the keynote speakers." I said, "Okay, cool." I grew up on watching Michael J. Fox and all that good stuff.
Right.
They're like, would you like to meet anybody specific? And I was looking through the program, and there was one person. I was like, ugh, Temple Grandin. And for those that don't know, if you don't know, look her up. She is phenomenal. She's a speaker, but she's on the spectrum significantly. And they actually made a movie. Claire Danes played her in a movie, but she is autistic, but she also is just altered the meat packing industry, or the slaughterhouse industry, for lack of a better term. I don't know the actual verbiage of it, but like working cattle and how to better guide the cattle, and create this whole thing, change the whole industry.
Wow.
And so I'm watching it, and somebody asked me, they're like, what does some autistic lady that is working in the meat industry have to do with first responders and mental health? She saw things differently, and she saw things from a vantage point that the majority of the people in that industry couldn't see. And she understand the emotions involved with certain things of that, or at least how it related to her. And I'm like, that's what we do.
Right.
We've experienced significant trauma and loss, and just been immersed in that kind of environment. but yet we're some of the few of us that have kind of been going through this have a vantage point or have a point of view that most people don't see, and I just aligned with that. So we were talking about. I was like, I'd love to meet her, and they're like, would you like to introduce her? Man, that was the one I was so pissed off at the hurricane because I was going to introduce her because I've
That's
been
awesome.
a huge fan. Like between her, Brene Brown, Rachel Remen with her kitchen table wisdom, all like I find these people that had I just been in vet or cop mode, wouldn't even come across my radar. But
Right.
because I'm open to it, and a lot of the big thing was, and I know I say this a lot when I speak, the one key for anybody who's struggling with anything, the biggest obstacle that most people face, it's internal. It's ourselves. And I tell people the day I stopped giving a shit about what other people thought of me
Oh, yes.
was the day I really started getting better. I really, because I'm not worried about what I look like. I'm hurting. So
Right.
I joke, if you're telling me juggling chickens and throwing darts is going to make you better, I got to the point where like, all right, I'll be a chicken juggling dart throwing. You know what I mean? So
Right.
I stopped caring that, and it's not that I don't care. It's that I stopped letting it affect me from trying things or figuring stuff out because
Right.
I might fail. I got news for you. If you think you're going to mess up, you're going to mess up. That's okay.
Right.
That's part of the process, right? But just kind of be a little bit more proactive and getting out of my own way.
Yeah,
So
it's great. It's great that you say that. I always plug this book. Somebody had given it to me or recommended it to me about a year ago now. And when I was really, I was kind of in this, I was at that point. I was kind of in that middle. I was trying to kind of recover from my issue. Somebody I knew said, "You need to read this book." And I said, "Well, what's that?" It's called The Courage to Be Disliked.
oh yeah, great book. Yeah, it's a good book.
I picked that book up, Chris. I started reading it, and that's right to your point. That's to the point that you just made. I had to make that decision that I could no longer give a shit what people thought about me
Oh,
because they don't care. It's you that are building that up. You're the one that's freaking giving yourself that angry. You're the one who's thinking, oh, so and so is thinking this about me, and they could give a shit. That's all
oh yeah.
you. That's all you.
That is a great book. And I know one of the things that I know taking away from something like that was somebody goes, all right, see that person over there? You know that person. I was like, yeah. What is your most embarrassing moment to them? I said, what? He goes, for that person, what when they think about you, what is the most embarrassing moment? And I was like, oh, it's probably this and this. And you go to talk to them, they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. It's us. We
Yes.
are so much in our own way, and we're I know how to do this, or I don't need help, or I don't, we just listen. We're great at manipulating other people. We
Uh,
really are good. We are savants at manipulating ourselves. We can do it. We're great at it. But
yeah.
that's good.
It's funny. That's funny because it's funny. Like I guess now people can sit here and look at and you're listening to this. If you've listened to my podcast, if you've listened to the things that I say or I talk about with others, yeah, a lot of stuff that's coming out of Chris's mouth is shit anyway.
This is not
It's
rocket science.
it's not wrong. It's the stuff that look at it and go like, yeah, I'm an idiot because I spend my entire life, 23 plus years as a law enforcement officer. Prior to that, I was a firefighter. Like for so 30 plus years, I can do my job better than most people can do. I am great at it. I deal with people's shit like a champ. I screw myself up so bad. I can't deal with my own shit. Like I can deal with their shit. Like I can solve a problem in a domestic like in a snap.
It's comical that way. But it just goes back to it. You talk about being a baby, big scale, big picture thing. We all are.
Yeah.
This is stuff that, and I bring this up because I lost my father-in-law, who was a Korean War vet not too long ago, and I would sit every month. There's like a breakfast for the Korean War Vet Association, and we go over there, and the stories they told, first of all, are fucking hilarious, right? But being in the military, those stories are no different than the stories we were telling when I was deployed, right? When I was overseas,
Right.
it's the same stories, just different era, right? Kind of thing. They were struggling with the same things that we were struggling with, and that the people are going to be struggling with. So we didn't figure, like, I'm not like I'm super awesome. I figured out, that we need to work on ourselves. that is such an old understanding. I mean, like, but it's funny because I remember really like similar to like somebody that graduates in a police academy or fire academy. They're like, I'm a wealth of knowledge, and then they go to their first fire or first scene, and they're like, I don't know shit, right? But there have been times where, like, I've been working with somebody in crisis, and I see something and I address it, and it works, and I'm like, this is me trying to remember not to get in my own way. I'm like, I'm pretty fucking awesome. And then I realize, because it happened, the same situation will happen again, and it goes sideways, and I'm like, I'm an idiot. So we're just kind of trying to feel our way through this, stumbling through the dark, so to speak. But our intentions are good, and that to me is everything. And just kind of taking yourself not too seriously, which is why. And again, I always get myself in trouble for this, but when I talk about trauma, and I interject humor, or I may be like a little bit, I don't want to say obscene, but vulgar, or use language that some people are like, what? You know, that's the rawness of it. I've never, in my entire time working with people in crisis, have ever come across somebody who was genuinely just like super polite and just had their shit together. Because if they were, they wouldn't be in crisis, right? So, you know, I had people that I've helped get to treatment or get better call me initially and like, I'm going to kill your family. You're a piece of shit. I hope you fucking die. And then 2 weeks later, they're like, man, you saved my life. And I tell them, I said, I didn't do shit. You did all the work. I said, hey, look at this. And they did. So to me, I find I'm always at odds with certain, and I'm not saying like organization, but certain like venues where somebody will come up to me like, hey man, great message. Maybe tone down the language. Well, you know what? When I had a gun to my head, language didn't mean shit to me.
Right.
It really didn't mean shit to me. And not that I'm being, you know, kind of vulgar for the purposes of being vulgar or just kind of throwing it, because it's raw.
Right.
Raw. So, and like with Trauma Behind the Badge, and what we do is, what our podcast, we do, it's a back parking lot conversation. It's a kitchen table conversation for the fire side of the house, or in the ambulance bay for the medics, or in the break room for correct. It's raw. We don't have to worry about offending anybody. And to be quite honest, and this is what I love about us and our community, you know you're appreciated in your discipline if people are fucking with you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. People don't realize that.
Hey, people stop fucking with you is the day they don't trust you, and they don't feel comfortable talking with you. And I don't know that it'll ever change. That'll ever change in like these big organizations and stuff like that. But I'm fighting the good fight, man.
Yeah, that's kind of our way of doing things. It's just our way of doing things.
At least
and we try to do that all the time. And that's why I say, when I think one of the things that people I talk about, sometimes I think people think it's borderline obsession because I throw Chris's speech into a lot of things, because that's what it was to me to this day. When people say something, I'm like, dude, like that resonated with more people in that audience than you can think it resonated with, because that's what they feel. That's raw. Like that's the shit you want to say when you're going through crap. Like you're not thinking about, well, you know what? Let me get a tea and I'm like, come on, dude, really?
I don't want to offend you while I'm trying to kill myself.
Yeah, I don't want to offend you while my ass is burning. I don't want to, like, I'm so pissed off right now that I'm worried about that. I think
yeah. So I will tell you the most comforting thing, and I talked about this with the guys over Trauma, and there's on several different occasions we've all had the luxury of kind of being together, and I realized very quickly, especially working in this kind of field and this kind of environment, that it's a lot of seriousness, it's a lot of dark stuff. In the times that we've all managed to kind of hang out together, it's probably the one time where your guard's down,
right?
You could say whatever you want to say. There's no censorship or anything like that. I don't think, and we bring it up all the time, I have never laughed so hard about this. And again, if you're outside looking in, you'd be like, they're idiots, right?
Oh, yeah.
But the comfort and the love that we have for each other is so appreciated without having to say it's appreciated.
Right.
That your guard's down and you get to feel happy, and you get to joke about shit that if we joked about it in front of other people, they'd be like, you know,
what's wrong with you guys?
That's weird. Why would you? But it's so rewarding. And if you don't have that, You
Yeah.
don't have that your group of people like you talked about earlier. Like surround yourself with those people.
Yeah.
Surround yourself with again professional people because I needed that. I
Oh,
needed
yeah.
to elevate my game to be again more professional to reach a broader audience. But that's one section that I kind of endear myself to a little bit. But don't lose your non-censored people
Right.
that will call you on your shit. Doug, Richie, Chris, Raul. Because I've gone since we've all gotten together. I've gone through some different things that each one of them, either in their own ways, either reached out to me or personally, have been like, "Hey, man, get your fucking head out of your ass," or "Do this," or that. And I don't take offense to it because they're not.
Right.
There's no, no fight and game for them. It has nothing to do with them. They're legitimately giving a shit. They're like, "Hey, man, you're fucking yourself up. Do this or take care of yourself or call me." So that's if you don't have that, and somebody. I think it was like a YouTube video or me or something like that. It's like true friendship, especially in our community. We can not talk to each other for years. And I've had this happen. A guy that I was deployed with reached out to me and I hadn't seen him in like 20 years. We picked up the conversation as if it was yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So that's priceless.
Oh, definitely.
Those relationships are priceless.
I had that opportunity when we were in Boston for me to be able to sit there with all you guys, with Doug and yourself and
Yeah.
Rich and all, and just hear the stories and talk about things like that is something that's priceless. It was priceless.
But the event, and by the way, kudos to the shirt. Anyway,
that was Rich, not me.
the venue is everything. Like those when we get together, and again, there's only a select group of people that I don't want to say that we would allow in.
No, I get you.
There's a select group of people that I think we would be that comfortable in kind of talking uncensored, like,
right.
and we were, and it's not to say like we're saying some horrible shit. We're not, but we're not worried about upsetting somebody by saying something or nobody has a problem being like, well, you're an idiot, or how about
right.
it's just so freeing. And
mm-hmm.
what you experienced, like when we were sitting over there at the Brown Jug, right? That's it.
Yeah.
That's the magic of it. It was very organic. It wasn't set up. And of course, Liz was with us there, who's my alter ego. She's phenomenal, right? But it was, I think you got to appreciate what I think we sometimes take for granted and how much fun that is.
No, I appreciated it very much. I have been lucky through my connection with FBI Lita because that's where it all started. So I don't want to leave that out of it. The networking part and how that all began is me doing all that. Like that was through FBI Lita and meeting Chris first and then Doug and then having mutual conversations and then having conversations, off what I want to call offline, like when we're just sitting there talking or we're standing in one of our groups in the middle of this great big venue and we're just in a group of 6 or 7 people just bullshitting and we don't hear anything anybody else is saying. And it's just people, when you feel that was a time that I felt that, and it was very organic. And like you said, you just talk about anything. You feel free, nobody's there judging. You don't give a shit what the person behind you is drinking or saying. Like you're just in your group doing your thing. And it was an awesome time, and I think you appreciate them moments, and you look back on them moments and go, God, you learned so much, and you had I never stopped laughing. My stomach hurt so hard.
it was and we have our, I don't know, I guess you'd call them inside kind of jokes. One of my favorite ones was I set up a conference in Virginia, and Doug was, and it's no secret that Karen put Doug's presentation kind of together and put all the stuff. It did like the spell checking on it and everything. And I was sitting, I think I was with Raul and a good friend of mine, Patty, who Connecticut State Trooper, who he passed away. But we're sitting there, and he talks about emptying your wheelbarrow, right? And it was spelled Barrow, O-W. And I was sitting there. I am a postgraduate, right? I have a master's level.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this fucking idiot misspelt barrel because I'm thinking barrel with 2 L's, right?
Right.
I was like, what a dummy. And so we're having this great conversation. And then me being the nerd I am, I look it up and I'm like, son of a, it's spelled both ways, but it initially comes from barrel. And I'm like, oh my God. And then we bring Doug into it. And Doug initially was like, I didn't write that shit. I'm like, come on, Karen. And then Karen's like, yeah, which, by the way, Karen, I think is 10 times more educated than any of us will ever be.
All right.
It's
Yeah.
just like, no, this is the proper way. I've checked everything. And it was just, those are the moments, right?
Yeah.
That we can, in the midst of talking about some heavy stuff,
Right.
Emptying your barrel or whatever you want to call it. But it's the place where you can just kind of be free. And when you don't, one of the big things that we talk about with being in crisis, or just not so much being in crisis, but just being in a state of funk kind of thing, is that you forget the joy. And
Right.
you're reminded of it when you're around these people,
Yes.
Me and my wife were cracking up about something like that. That's the kind of thing that I look forward to. The joy that I have, with Jill, with my wife, and the joy that I have with the guys with Trauma, and you and Rich and everybody just kind of getting together. That I think on purpose, it's not all the time, because
Right.
I don't think we would appreciate it as much if it was every single day. Although I'd love to test that theory, but
Yeah, that would be great. Okay, next month we're going to be wherever.
it is fun. It
Yes,
is
it
fun.
is.
It's
It
fun.
is. And you have to, I mean, you have to be able to enjoy things. We talk about a lot of things, and Liz and I had this conversation when we were talking, because we talk about the alcohol abuse and all the
Yeah,
things that you did or whatever. And
yeah.
then the people are like, sometimes people turn around and go, oh, yeah, now you're against alcohol. I'm like, no, 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 that doesn't mean that. What that means is I'm not using it as a medication anymore. I'm not sitting here, like, I'm not using it to drown things or block things out. It doesn't mean you can't go have a beverage. Come on, guys.
It's funny because it's been years since I've had a drink, and it's more awkward for other people than it is for me at this point, right?
Right.
And it was a very genuine, and I don't think Fields would mind me sharing this, but Chris and I did something in Indiana, did a presentation together, and either before or after, no, it was afterwards. We're kind of sitting at like the hotel lobby, and we're starving. We haven't eaten anything, and he goes to get a beer or a drink or whatever. And then he kind of looked at me like he fucked up. He's like, oh no. He goes, is this okay? And I'm like, what? He's like, is this okay? I was like, no. You, my life is going to be turned upside down right now. I'm like, no, fucking have at it. And interestingly enough, like we did something in Dallas, and there was a big I think it was a cops conference or something. I walked in because my flight got in late. Everybody's hammered. I walk in, and it was just comical. But again, it wasn't one. It becomes like, but those are the kind of things that since I retired, I've had to navigate. So
Right.
the job isn't significant. It does kind of add to a certain drama to our lives and stuff like that. But a lot of it is what we bring to the table, do the job, and what we take away from the job. And I got to navigate it with some awesome people. Like Doug's like, I remember when I first quit, Doug's like, well, I'm not gonna have a beer. I was like, dude, you don't have to not have a beer or drink or whatever. He's like, no, I'm gonna do it. He wasn't doing it. He was doing it in most respect. It's hard to explain. He was doing it respectfully,
Yeah.
but he could if he wanted to, and he knew he could. But then, so it's those kind of things where it doesn't make it awkward to talk amongst like really, really cool people. And
Right.
the scary thing is, and I'll just real briefly on that, because I'm by no means one of those, alcohol or substance or what, fucking
Right.
smoke weed, mushrooms, ketamine, whatever the hell you want to do. I can give a shit. Listen, I know a lot of vets that are doing, whether it be
Right.
an ayahuasca treatment or microdosing with psilocybin or what. If that works and keeps you on this planet, figure it out.
Do what you got to do.
That's your journey, right? But I will say this: the reason, whether it be alcohol or other substances, the reason so many people do it and struggle with it, it's because it fucking works
Yeah.
for a very short time. The problem that we run into is when those things that, like, for some people it's exercise. Like that's my like I do a lot of running, and that's my coping mechanism. But sometimes, guess what? It doesn't work. Same thing with alcohol. Same thing with whatever input, whatever substance or thing you're going to do, gambling or sex addiction, whatever it is. Right? They work. That's why it gets abused. And the problem is when that stops working. That's a problem. That's when you need to figure it out. But again, I'm just, it's not about me to judge anybody. And I hope no one ever felt like I was judging anybody, because I don't. People are in different places at different time. And hey, there's people that sometimes it's keeping them alive.
Yeah.
So again, I can appreciate the damage, but I can also appreciate the moderation in which people that are dead against substances would be like, well, I don't care that you're going to kill yourself. You should never smoke weed. Yeah, well, fucking, if it's that or smoke weed, fucking
Yeah.
smoke weed, man.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly. If that's the only choice you have,
yeah,
then stay alive, dude.
yeah, I'd much rather you stay alive to kind of figure it out. But
Yeah.
again, everybody's different. Everybody's different. We're all built differently. We're all made up differently, and certain things affect us, certain things don't. But again, ultimately, what this whole thing is about is being comfortable in where you're at, to either ask for help or to be guided by somebody, or not even guiding, being present for somebody else. That's
Right.
that ministry of presence. Just sometimes you don't have to know what to say. Sometimes you don't need to know the answer. But if one of my brothers is with me, or my sisters, they're with me, and they're like, I don't know what the fuck to do, but I'm here with you.
Yes.
And that find your tribe, man. Find your tribe.
Yeah.
That'll
Find
do
your
it.
tribe. Yeah, I trust in everything that these guys do and these guys say, and we talk a lot about this. And sometimes, yeah, we go off the rails, and sometimes we get a little crazy. But the plain message is just what Chris just said: is we are here when you don't think there's nobody here. There's people out there. There's myself. There's Trauma Behind the Badge. There's Survive First. There's Lifehouse. There's Cop Line. There are things out there for you. If you don't want to reach out in your area, because look, I know how that gets. Trust me, I went through it. You don't want that peer support group in your state, or that person, because cops are still cops and people say shit, and we want to be like, no. Good. There's stuff you can use that is not at the Cop Line, Trauma Behind, all these guys. Like, they're not people that are in your area, and they're people that are there to help you. You are not by yourself. You are not alone. And that's the key message in all this stuff that we say and all the stuff that we do. And if it wasn't for these guys starting that and them being those people way back for me, that's what put me where I'm at today. And I'm so grateful for that. So, Chris, I want you to tell everybody about Trauma Behind the Badge, what you guys do to help, like, give them everything that you need to give them. Because
Yeah.
I put it out there. It's in my book at the back. I tell people, like, that's my people, man.
Yeah.
That is my tribe. And I do that because that's who I trust.
Yeah.
They are the people that I trust, and I know that they won't ever take advantage, and they won't lead you in the wrong way, because that's what we end up doing. We talked about this and then kind of touched on this, I think, when we were talking in Boston, is we get to that point where, like, if you don't vouch for my friend Guido, he ain't getting in. Like, that's the way it is.
Yeah.
Because we have that, we still have that blue line.
Mm-hmm.
We still have that trust in certain people that we know are not going to turn their back on us or lead us down the wrong way for any reason other than to be that brother or sister for you when you're in your time of need.
Yeah. No, again, Trauma Behind the Badge, and I'll consolidate it as best I can. We are so connected with 1,000 different resources, but the ultimate goal is this. Initially, it was stigma, that we wanted to reduce. You're not going to eliminate stigma, but at least reduce it to the point where it's not kind of being an obstacle to getting help, whatever the help looks like. Whether it's talking to a friend, whether it's talking to a master's level professional or a doctor or whatever, or an inpatient treatment or whatever it is. That's good. There's nothing to be ashamed about that, right? But also and again, this is kind of merged with Survive First, which is the parent to most everything. Understanding that the individual in these disciplines struggle, but also the family members. And I think Karen brings such a beautiful aspect or point of view from that standpoint, right? So kind of working with the whole family unit, right? The other thing is we don't want money to be an impediment to somebody getting help. So somebody reaches out to us, they're like, "Hey, man, I've got shitty insurance, but I've got like a $1,000, $1,500 deductible or out of pocket. We can reach out to whether it be Meg, Make Everything Good, Survive First, which is phenomenal. And a lot of people don't know this, but Badges United by Kim DeFiore, combat vet, was going through a PhD program and wind up like doing a lot of stuff for veterans and first responders. Survive First kind of took on the load while she was working on the postgraduate work, stuff like that, right? But again, we don't want money to be in the way. And also, just like what you're saying, if you have some, and we say it all the time when we're kind of wrapping up, if you or somebody you know is struggling and you really don't know who to call or what to do or how to kind of navigate it, give us a shout. If I don't know, I'm sure I can bounce something off Raul or Richie or Fields or Doug or Karen together. So you're not doing it by yourself. So you got a team of people. We are like the Bad News Bears meets the Sherpas of of Mount Everest. Like we'll walk with you. And if I need to sit with you on a plane, or if I need to go to your house, or if I need to talk to you for hours on a Saturday morning at like 3 or 4, I'll do that. It doesn't cost you anything. We're doing it because it makes us feel good, and we want to help support it. Interestingly enough, and this is all about networking and growing, and FBI Lita is phenomenal. The contacts we've made there, and I appreciate just being able to link up with you and what you're doing now. We were doing a show with Trauma Behind the Badge, and Doug goes, "Hey, there's a fireman who started a paranormal group, investigative paranormal, like a ghost hunting group."
I remember this conversation.
I'm a nerd for like ghost hunting. Like I watch all the shit, scary movie. I love it. I love all the ghost hunting investigations, stuff like that. And he was like, "Yeah, he's a firefighter in Virginia. He's a firefighter where I live."
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, "What?" So he was on the show, and I was just all like, "Man, this is great." I wound up doing an investigation with him, and their group is called Beyond the Badge Paranormal.
Okay.
And we're actually getting next week. We're doing another one, and then I think we're going to a state penitentiary that had been shut down. We're doing a bunch of stuff, but his Beyond the Badge Paranormal is content for a cause. They are trying to promote. Because the firefighter was like, "Hey, listen, I was struggling. I was going through some tough times. This was one of my outlets. You know, some people exercise. Some people like hiking, riding a motorcycle, whatever." He's like, "I'd like doing this." And getting immersed in that kind of alleviated all the shit that he was going through. And it started taking off a little bit. So and let me tell you something. When you're in an abandoned house, or we just did St. Albans Sanatorium, whatever.
Okay.
It's fucking creepy. When you're in the middle of a house, worried about getting like asbestos poisoning or being haunted by some kid that was murdered 70 years ago, you forget about all your worries. But like, it was interesting because like in the middle of like his programs, they'll do like a mental health break and be like, "Hey, listen, reach out to Survive First," and he promotes Survive First, ad nauseum, which is great. But those are I would have never thought in a million years ghost hunting would have been something for mental health.
Wow.
Unfucking believable. So, Jeremy from Beyond the Badge Paranormal, definitely check him out.
Oh yeah, definitely.
We had one that they just put out, the last one for the last year, but we're doing a couple more things. But Trauma Behind the Badge has just been a group of broken toys that got together and were like, we want to help within our disciplines, whether it be fire, police, medic, dispatch, forensics, and the spouses. And we're just like, "Hey, listen, when you don't know really what to do, give us a shout. Well, let's figure it out together." And that's our whole purpose. And we've made hundreds of millions of dollars doing it.
Yeah. And if you believe that,
it's crazy, man. Because and you get, if you haven't already, you'll get people that be like, "Hey, I want to do what you do," and I'm like, and that's great. And I don't ever discourage anybody from doing that.
Right?
But they're like, "So can you like make a living?" No, not at all. Not at all. It's not about the money thing.
Right.
It's you'll get paid to speak, but again, those are. I'm not getting Gil Martin numbers or Grossman numbers. You know what I mean? Like what falls in the couch of their house is probably what I'm doing speaking engagement for. But
with a little lid stuck to it.
Yeah, or some hard candy from Linda's purse, right? No, but it's not about that, and it's never been about that. And I think the day it becomes about that, and I think we've seen it in this industry, it becomes kind of toxic. So we want to keep, kind of to our roots and Trump behind the badge, we want the family and the first responders and the veterans to know you don't have to do it by yourself. And we're not, the biggest thing is you will never be judged by us. And that's because if we judge you, we're basically judging ourselves. I mean, we're talking to people that were where we were, either deep into it or not as far down the road. And our big overarching messages of first responders and vets and their families, wait till the wheels fall off to get help.
Yeah.
We're there to be, hopefully, to provide some service or link you with resources so that you get help before the wheels fall off. Kind of maintenance, right? But if the wheels fall off, we're there too. So we're kind of like full service, like call us in chaos kind of thing. We don't charge anything. We would never. Somebody asked, "Hey, do you mind if we sit down and call and do I have to set this up?" Fucking call me. I put out my number all the time. I get phone calls all the time. All of us do, and it really isn't about any money. And to be quite honest, like I said earlier, if it's about the money, then you're doing it for the wrong reasons. That's just it.
I think that leads to the perfect thing of, I say, why we gravitate or why we do the things that we want to do, and we link ourselves to the people we do is just for that reason. We know the people who are valuable to us and are not looking for something else, and that's I think you feel you're going to get more quality things from people who are not looking to make a buck because they're not looking to solve your problem. They're looking to just be there. And that's, I think, what you guys try to do. That's what I've tried to kind of start with this. And I never knew I was going to do this. Like
I don't think anybody does.
I don't think we ever. I think you're like you or Doug or none of us were like, okay, well, why did I start that? I mean, that's just because I enjoy the conversations, and Chris, I enjoy you guys, and I thank you guys very much for being a big part of my journey in all of this. All of you guys, you, Doug, Raul, Chris, Rich now, and now being being able to expand that partnership with being brought in with Lighthouse. I appreciate that greatly because
that's right. Congratulations. Again, so far.
No, but I care about small departments, and for Joe to reach out and ask me to do that, to be a voice for small agencies. I mean, that's an honor to me to be able to do that and to work with you guys and do that. I am so over the moon about it. My wife's like, "You're excited?" I said, "Yes, I'm excited as hell about that."
So, I get the same way you get. I enjoy when we get together and we do this stuff, whether it be Trump behind the badge, whether it be the deep blue stuff. And again, you've just basically, you're a page that has been added to the book that we're creating that is now another resource for somebody else. Like, hey, have you read this? Or have you talked to Chris? Check out this guy's story, or have a conversation with him. Or again, it gives us the ability to be like, hey, Chris is doing this. This is what a resource that he's working with that could probably help you and other people. Again, it's what it is. And I said this, I say this all the time. It's like people asking to buy information on how to do CPR. Like, this is CPR. If you're charging people to learn CPR, you know what I mean? Like, this is all stuff we need to know. This is saving lives. And there's rewards to it far beyond any kind of financial reward.
We're giving that stuff. I mean, when you're asking me, I think when the first thing out of your mouth, if you ask me, like, how do I get into that? And the first thing is, how do I get into that? And the second thing is, just to your point, how much do you make? Nothing. It comes out of my pocket, dude. I've given away more books than I sell because it's not about that. Like,
you'll see them be like, I don't know that I want to do that.
They take a step back and they're like, you what?
I don't want to. You're not going to get rich or famous doing this. In the traditional means, but you'll be rich in friendships and people that you'll help that you'll never know, but there's people that you do help that you do know. And listen, that's a great metric for how successful you are, is when you get these impromptu, like, hey man, thanks for what you said. It meant a lot to me. And if you think that does a lot for the person that's struggling, it does a lot for the person that they're telling that to. And it's just great. And I just don't ever want to see a first responder or vet or their family ever have to go through what we've gone through, what you've gone through, what I've gone through, what Doug's gone through, what Karen's gone through, what anybody's gone through. And I appreciate you doing what you do, and especially especially with Lighthouse and Joe's great people. And again, it's just I like to surround myself with awesomeness and people that are much smarter and much influential than I am. And I'm overflowing with those folks, with you guys. So
well, I'll know when I made it is when I get my nickname in your phone. That's what
yeah, that's
what I know. I know I've reached a pinnacle when that happens.
Yeah, if I ever lose my phone, there's going to be some up to be like, what is this person? Yeah, my phone's got some interesting names and pictures in it. So,
my brother, I thank you very much for your time, man.
Oh man, no, my pleasure. Thank you for what you're doing, man, and this is awesome.
I thank you, dude, and I look forward to us being able to see each other in person again and getting together. Hopefully that's soon. And man, I wish you the best. Please check out Trauma Behind the Badge. Check out Survive First. Check out Lighthouse. Like, these guys are doing things for the right reasons. Please check them out, please, because I can tell you this: if you've never listened to a Trauma Behind the Badge, you are in for a treat. If you like Deep Blue, trust me, you will love the Trauma Behind the Badge. So thank you again, my brother. I wish you the best, and we will talk soon.
Awesome.
Take care.
You've been listening to the Deep Blue Project. As a father, husband, friend, and someone who loves to chat about anything and everything, Chris brings over 3 decades of public service experience to the table. With a background in firefighting and law enforcement, along with degrees in criminal justice and behavioral science, he's seen it all, and he's learned a thing or two along the way. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, find us on LinkedIn and X at Deep Blue Project. Find our website at deepblueproject.com, and to reach out, send an email to deepblueproject@outlook.com. Keep keeping it real, and we'll see you next time on the Deep Blue Project.